Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I am Catherine Mattice Zundel, founder and CEO of Civility Partners, and we are a consulting firm focused on building positive workplace cultures. And I'm super excited to have somebody who's really focused on curiosity and decision making. So, Becki Saltzman, thank you so much for being here with me.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and just to tell everyone a little bit about you, you are the founder and chief curiosity seeker at Applied Curiosity Lab, and you have served over 1 million, or you've done education with over 1 million people in critical thinking, applied curiosity, decision making, and you also have a LinkedIn Live show on Mondays called Host of Good Thinking Live. So if you want to learn more from Becki, make sure you check her out on Mondays. So. Tell me first I know we talked about this a little bit, but I want everyone else to hear. How did you get into this idea of we need consultants and I need to be helping people get curious and make better decisions?
Perfect. So it came about through the curiosity research initially, where I discovered that there were kind of two kinds of curiosity we were thinking about when we were talking about curiosity. Free range curiosity, this childlike sense of wonder and questions, and then applied curiosity, using curiosity for a tool for deciding what to do and making decisions. And that is what led me straight into this realm of the intersection of applied curiosity and critical thinking and how it relates to decision making. So that's the frameworks we created. That's how I slithered into this little niche when I realized that most people think the opposite of critical thinking is bad thinking, when that's not the case at all.
Yeah, you know what? I actually wonder, do people even know what critical thinking is? I feel like that's a phrase we use all the time, even back in elementary school and high school. Explain what critical thinking is.
So I think it's easy to think about good thinking as I call it the three legs of the good thinking stool.
Okay.
So we'll get to critical thinking, but the other two are strategic thinking and creative thinking. So creative thinking is turning problems upside down to see if you can come up with new ideas, or turning things upside down to generate new ideas and possibilities.
Okay.
Strategic thinking, to simplify, is probably more root cause analysis, like the 5 whys, getting down to the root cause and strategizing in that way. Whereas critical thinking is somewhat different, because critical thinking is kind of the foundation, which is simply knowing what to believe and how to decide. So those are how can I know if this is really true? Critical thinking. What is the root cause of this? Strategic thinking. How can I come up with new ideas? Creative thinking. So and then there's the opposite of critical thinking, which is not bad thinking.
What is the opposite? What is it?
So the opposite of critical thinking is not something to be dismissed, but the opposite of critical thinking is intuitive thinking or gut thinking. Okay. And the thing about intuition is it comes to us whether we should use it or not. But there are specific conditions in the literature that make it clear when it is extremely useful and when you should probably be using critical thinking instead. And there are these 3 conditions that you can apply to say, okay, I'm feeling this intuition. Should I trust it?
Okay. And Loretta says that you've got a good explanation here, and I agree. So thank you
good.
you. I want to talk more about this gut reaction thing, because I do feel like the times that I've ignored my gut have not turned out, and then I always kind of regret, I should have followed my gut. I knew better. But you're saying when you have this gut reaction, you still should do some critical thinking. Is that what you're saying?
Not exactly. So first of all, there's 2 things to think about: the decision process and the outcome. So if I trust my gut or don't trust my gut, and therefore I put my blindfold on and run across traffic and nothing happens and it goes viral and I become famous on TikTok, that really wasn't a good decision process, but it had a good outcome. So the first thing is separating the decision process from the outcome.
Okay.
The second thing is there are conditions in place. We call it your intuition referee, when it is totally appropriate to use your intuition. And there are 3 conditions, and you can go, okay, is this, and even though it feels like you should use your intuition, if these 3 conditions are not in place, it is better to switch to another form of good thinking.
Okay. And so that makes sense. So tell me how you go in and help organizations with your education, or, we're all so burnt out, probably not always making the best decisions because we're burnt out and we don't have the wherewithal to think through. So I'm curious to hear more about what you do with organizations in your education.
Perfect. So of course, we're fellow LinkedIn Learning instructors. So I have courses on applied curiosity, a bunch on decision making, and a trifecta of courses on critical thinking. We have specific workshops. We have a kind of our signature applied curaosity workshop, and we have our signature critical thinking workshop, case study based, very, fun. And then we're revamping and launching our high stakes decision making online training and coaching program. And those are really taking small cohorts of teams through their situation, using the framework, the applied curiosity framework and the critical thinking framework, taking these really kind of esoteric things and making them fun and applicable for teams and leaders to use in their everyday lives, and also obviously in their workplace. So that's really workshop based. I do some speaking, but it's primarily workshop based.
Okay. And how do organizations decide that they need you? Because I want to preface this by saying, as somebody who trains on building positive workplace environments, often the organization says, oh, we don't have a really great work environment. We should get Catherine in here to train, and I could just, having that background, I could envision a CEO thinking, they're not making good decisions. We need to get them a training on how to make better. Is that what happens?
Yeah, perhaps, but I think you pointed out something really smart, because what you do is so important and the need is so obvious. What I do, the need isn't as obvious, because even at the higher levels of leadership, confidence does not equate to competence.
Right.
So you can be very confident that your decisions are brilliant, but if you can't identify a decision process, like a hygienic, clean, bias-free, noise-free decision process, then you have an opportunity to have a team of much better decision makers. But it's not like this gut where you look around and go, because usually you'll see a bad outcome and you'll say, wait, how can we avoid that? But that could also be focusing too much on the outcome and not enough on the decision process. Whereas if you have a bunch of unhappy employees, you kind of know, we need Catherine.
Yeah. But what's funny is, even then, they don't always know. Sometimes I still have to fight, like, this is costing you money. So we need to make some changes.
Yes. Yeah. Decisions you can quantify decisions maybe slightly easier. Yeah. And because of a lot of our work is actually involves math. There's you can put some numbers on things in a meaningful way, because probabilistic thinking is one of the things we teach and stuff like that.
Okay. All right.
Forecasting.
Now, having taught college for 10 years, sometimes I felt like there were indeed bad questions. You always hear, there are no bad questions. I'm curious about your point of view. Are there bad questions?
Okay, so I'll throw it back to you. Have you ever you taught college, you've been in boardrooms, you've been at conferences, you've been in meetings. Have you ever heard a question where you were like, that was so good? Because it either answered and clarified something you didn't even know you didn't quite get, or it asked something exactly what you were wondering.
Yes. And also sometimes the questions just really highlight, like, wow, that person's thinking about this material really deeply. And so I get really excited for them that they had that question. I did, joking aside, I mean, I would get frustrated if they repeated a question that someone else had already asked,
Perfect. Perfect. I mean, that's a perfect example. So we know two things. If you know that there are great questions and good questions, then we can agree, if we're being sensitive with language, maybe we want to throw out bad and say could be better if we're being sweet about it. But like, we know two things. Number one, there's a continuum of quality of questions. We can agree. Number two, there are two main buckets for why we ask them: information gathering or impression management, and sometimes both. But the goal of the question is one or the other or both. That's it. So what we do is help teams and leaders move their questions along the continuum to land at the MVQ, the most valuable question, and knowing techniques for asking the MVQ, the question that has the highest return on investment based on your goal. Maybe you want to just impress Catherine, who's leading a workshop. So you just try to ask a question that impresses her. Or maybe you need clarification, or maybe both. Right. But asking those MVQs, and we know in the research from our own work and from the research that you can get better at asking great questions. So that kind of gives a hint that there may be lingering at the other end of the continuum suboptimal questions.
Okay, I like that was a suboptimal question. I wish I'd had that phrase. Yeah, it was just so, and especially when it was like, I'm assigning something and then someone raises their hand, how many pages does this have to be? Like, you're the fifth person to ask that, and also it's on page 2.
And that is
questions.
A bad question.
Yeah. So what are some of the techniques to move our questions up the continuum to, I like this, most valuable question? What are some ways that give us some techniques?
Well, there's kind of two buckets of techniques. There's what to do and what to avoid.
Okay.
So there are categories of things that you can avoid. So we have these case studies where it's kind of like whack-a-mole. You can hit, you can kind of pop and identify, oh, that was a negation question. Like, shouldn't we all just decide to da-da-da-da-da? That's not really it's a negation question. So how to switch those questions? So that's like what to avoid. And then how to achieve your goal is starting with the goal of your purpose of your question. And purpose is one of the P's in the critical thinking. So it kind of all blends in. What's the purpose of your question? Information obtaining or impression management, or both. And then the context. Should you go up to your doctor and ask about your test at a party when you see your doctor at a party? Like, probably not. And they should not, in a group of people, say, this is the time.
Call me on Monday.
Yeah. Do you think you should call me on Monday about those test results? No, that's not the right context.
Right.
And then understanding that in any one moment, our roles shift. So we could be sitting in a meeting and we get a phone call, and we go from being the boss to being the child, the parent, or the patient. And those roles shift, and identifying when those inflection points occur, how to identify them. So context, purpose, role, and then what to avoid.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to think how to apply this. So if I'm like, yesterday my team had we're doing a group marketing program where we're creating a marketing plan together with everyone involved. I'm just thinking about that sort of a context where it's a kind of a staff meeting. We're doing a lot of brainstorming. How could I, because I'm the leader, how could I help my team and myself ask the right questions in those scenarios? If we're thinking about, yesterday we talked about how to market this new product that we're going to be launching. Like in a conversation around that, how do I get everyone to think deeper, including myself?
Oh, that's a great question. It goes, I'm going to borrow from another framework that we have called peak curiosity. It's a very specific curve, and the dial that you turn to manage curiosity is turned by asking questions that manage familiarity. So if your team is extremely familiar with what you're trying to get them to do, or you think that they're extremely familiar, then you have to ask a question that will move them toward less familiarity and more curiosity. As an example, you are selling a corporation on your training. They don't know anything about you. So you're trying to move them to be more familiar. When you get to the point where there's no more curiosity, then you should be at the are you ready to move forward stage. But you've seen, and we've experienced it ourselves, like right when you're about to say, yeah, I'll take that, someone asks another question, you're like, well, wait, I need to reconsider. So it's understanding this peak curiosity curve is I'm trying to describe it without the visual, so I'm not going like this. It's really, and there are different kinds of questions that you ask depending on how familiar you think you are, that your audience is with what you're trying to achieve. So, a yes, no question should not be asked when they're just getting to know you. Perhaps that needs to be a how do you think about this question versus do you want to buy this question?
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So you've got some sales skills built into your courses because salespeople have to be good question askers. That's for
sure. Because your question may be to manage impressions, which could influence or sales, if you're afraid of using the word sales, influence or persuasion fall within that. So it kind of is a whole way of looking at applied curiosity and critical thinking tools for better decision making, including better decisions on how to approach customers or clients.
Right. And we make so many little tiny decisions all throughout the day. So hopefully they're good decisions. Yes. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. It's like I don't know, like I've had my business since 2012, and when I think about everybody who's been involved and really where we're at because of all those tiny little decisions that have been made. Should we hire this person or not? Should we send this email or not? Just all the little things, that those little teeny micro decisions, I guess, all day, every day, little by little, have gotten my business to where it is. Not just mine, everyone on my team. And so when I think about that, it's like there's real ownership for everyone that, hey, all of my team members have made all these really good decisions, and all of us haven't always made good decisions, but I don't know, all those little microaggressions, that's my other world. Micro decisions have, I don't know, I'm proud of my team, I guess, for all our little decisions.
That's see, that's so awesome, because what you're doing is you're looking at where you are now and you're looking back and identifying these inflection points. And then the reason that my work may be exciting but also torturous is that you could also look back and say, I am massively successful. And what would be a counterfactual? What would be one thing that would have changed that would have not led to this? And what would have been one thing that changed that would make this success pale in comparison to the success
that we could have.
And those are upward and downward counterfactuals, and they're torturous because we feel like this is as successful as I ever wanted to be, until you look back in 5 years on now and go,
this isn't as successful as I want us to be. We got lots more climbing to do up a mountain, and my team's on board. So
awesome.
Hopefully we'll keep making good decisions. Well, thank you so much for being here with me. I really enjoyed our conversation, and it's, decision making is a little outside of the realm of a positive workplace culture, which is where I focus, but not so much. I mean, the decision to step in when you witness a microaggression, or to go to HR when you see something that's not professional or not working. I mean, these are little tiny decisions that we're trying to influence our clients, employees to make that decision to step in. And of course, it takes courage to step in something like that.
Well, the opposite of fear is not courage.
What is
the
it?
opposite of fear is curiosity.
So it's maybe we need to preface it or rework it to say, just think about, well, what could happen if I did step in? What might the outcome be?
Or what if I'm wrong?
What if I'm wrong? That's powerful. Oh, I love this. Oh, thank you. Well,
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you being here, and tell everyone where they can get a hold of you.
Oh, okay. So appliedcuriositylab.com, super easy, or on LinkedIn, Becki Saltzman. I respond to all of those places. So thanks so much again for having me.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Have a